tells you lies, or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the crown? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow, or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that satisfies? Do you believe in a God that opens eyes? Do you believe in a God that tells you lies, or do you believe in me? Do you believe in a God that brings you down? Do you believe in a God that wears the crown? Do you believe in a God that makes you bow, or do you believe in me?
It's Beyond Common Sense. It's Lanny Sense with Lanny Swerglo, KCAA's resident gay, woke, liberal, pot-smoking, race-mixing, tree-hugging, left-handed, science-affirming, Jewish, humanist, atheist, a white evangelical Christian nationalist, worst nightmare. And welcome to today's show, which is anything but a worst nightmare for all of you who are here tonight with us and listening to us this afternoon. We're now on at 2 o'clock. I keep forgetting that. We've got a great show. You know, coming up is 420 Day, which is next Saturday. And is it next Saturday? Is it Saturday? I'm not sure. Sunday. Yeah, 420 is on Sunday. So we're going to celebrate it today. We're going to talk a lot about cannabis, our own use of cannabis. And we also have Linda Salas is going to be the woman on the beat. And she is going to be calling in from a protest demonstration that she is at today. And we're going to be getting to her in just a little bit and find out just what's going on. But, you know, I wanted to we're going to be celebrating 420 Day. Of course, for a lot of us, 420 Day is every day of the year, and morning and evening too. So, but I thought some of you may not know about how 420 Day came on to be, and I've got a little thing here I'm going to tell you, bring you up to date on that. Apparently, over the past 2 decades, 24 states plus the District of Columbia and Guam have legalized marijuana for recreational use. And actually that number's a little more now. That means that marijuana smokers can smoke more openly than ever before on 420, a date that both marijuana smokers and non-smokers recognize as a national holiday for cannabis culture. And it's not just a national holiday, it is a international holiday. We'll get to that in just a minute. Yet but people really don't know how it came. How did we get this 420 name? Well, what it is some people have said that 420 is a code among police officers for marijuana smoking in progress. Some also note that 420 is also Adolf Hitler's birthday. And some go as far as to cite Bob Dylan's song, Rainy Day Woman, number 12 and 35, because 12 multiplied by 35 equals 420. All right. But to put it bluntly, these rumors of the history behind April 20th and 420 got associated with marijuana use are not really what happened. The most credible story traces 420 to Marin County, California in 1971. 5 students at San Rafael High School. That's where 420 comes from. High school students who would meet at 4:20 p.m. by the campus statue of chemist Louis Pasteur to partake. They chose that specific time because extracurricular activities had usually ended by that time. This group, who was composed of Steve Caper, Dave Reddix, Jeffrey Knoll, Larry Schwartz, and Mark Gravich, became known as the Weirdos because they met at a wall. They met at a wall. Excuse me, the Waldos, not Weirdos. Waldos, they're probably weird too, because they met at a wall. They would say 420 to each other as code for marijuana. As Dave Reddix said, "We got tired of the Friday night football scene with all of the jocks. We were the guys sitting under the stands, smoking a doobie, wondering what we were doing there." The shenanigans continued long after 4:20 p.m. too. The group challenged each other to find even more interesting things to do under the influence, calling their adventures safaris. Later, Reddick's brother helped him get work with the Grateful Dead bassist Phil Lesh as a roadie. So the band is said to have helped popularize the term 420. On December 28, 1990, a group of Deadheads in Oakland handed out flyers that invited people to smoke 420 on April 20th at 4:20 p.m. One ended up with Steve Bloom, a former reporter for High Times magazine, on authority on cannabis culture. The magazine printed the flyer in 1991 and continued to reference the number. Soon it became known worldwide as a code for marijuana. In 1998, the outlet acknowledged that the Waldos were the inventors of 420. So there we have it. And what's interesting is 420 is not just an American, it's not just a national holiday. 420 is celebrated around the world. In countries around the world, it is celebrated. It's a non-sectarian, non-religious, non-patriotic, totally secular celebration that is celebrated everywhere that people smoke cannabis, and where does everybody, they speak it everywhere. So 420 is a wonderful holiday, and one of these days it should be declared a national holiday, an international holiday by the United Nations. And you know what? With all the horrible things going on in the world right now today, with the wars and all the problems going on and the autocrats rising, we all need to sit back and kick back and smoke more 420. You know, I don't know if it would do any good, but it certainly wouldn't hurt, and we'd all feel a lot better. So there's the story on 420, if you didn't know. But I always thought it was interesting. It was high school students. You know, we freak out. Oh, my gosh, high school students are smoking marijuana. Oh, it's no big deal. They all, nothing happened to them. You know, we got to stop freaking out about this, and maybe that's why you get a little up. Oh my God, it's high school students. The one thing I regret is that when I was in high school, I wasn't smoking marijuana. I didn't smoke marijuana until I was in college. I couldn't think if I had started smoking marijuana in high school, I probably would have done better. At least it would have been more fun anyway. High school was high school. Anyway, hey, Gregory, thanks for joining us. Sam, all the way from Ecuador, is here with us. And Linda, are you on right now with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, well, let's get right to you, because you are our first roving reporter live on the scene of a protest demonstration. Is that right?
Yes, it was very sparsely attended, but it was organized. It was organized, what they told me is it was organized by the Palm Desert Greens, and many of them went to Indio, which may have been a larger demonstration. I only knew about the one in Palm Springs. So there were maybe 8 of us there.
What was the demonstration for?
I'm sorry. Oh, it was hands off our Social Security. It was at the Social Security office. And prior to the demonstration, I went into the office and I wanted to ask them 2 questions. And they went through a whole lot of people before I could ask those questions. One is, what changes have occurred since the new administration? And 2, what are you doing about it? And they could not answer. They gave me the press company, or the press people of Social Security, which is clearly run by the new administration. So I will do some investigating and try to get some answers from them, to answer what is being done to secure our Social Security payment.
Yeah, a lot of us are very worried about that. You know, in Palm Springs on the day of national protest, over 3,000 people showed up to Palm Springs City Hall to protest. Right. I and Victor were down there, and it was really quite a celebration, and it was amazing. 3,000 people in Palm Springs. And yesterday, when I was driving near Cathedral City, and I was near the Tesla dealership. I went there about 12 noon, and there was about 40, 50 people in front of the Tesla dealership protesting Musk, of course. And,
I was there.
And that goes on fairly regularly, I understand.
Every Sunday.
It happens here every week. In Portland, it happens every week.
Up until
at the dealership?
The end of May. The end of May, because it's too hot. If we may change the time from maybe 10 to 11 instead of, 12 to 1.
Well, maybe they can move the demonstration inside the Tesla dealership where it's air conditioned.
I love it. But nobody on the street will see it. Only the people trying to buy.
Yeah, that's true. Well, at least you'll be comfortable, though. At least
Yeah.
that you'll be comfortable. But we need more of these
sit-in.
demonstrations, so I'm really kind of glad to see that they are occurring and going on right now.
Oh,
By the
yeah.
way, if you would like to call in and join our conversation, we certainly encourage you to do so. The phone number to call in is 909-283-1000, 909-283-1000, or 909-283-9000. You can take your choice, 1,000 or 9,000. They're both open. The lines are open. So if you'd like to join in our conversation, please feel more than welcome to do so. All right. What's interesting, the DEA is very concerned about 420 Day. And we're going to talk a little bit later on, especially I want to have Sam talk about it, about why cannabis is important to us personally. But apparently the DEA is promoting an anti-420 Day contest for young people to flood Instagram with marijuana warnings. The Drug Enforcement Administration is promulgating an anti-420 Day campaign that's recruiting students to send short videos warning their peers about marijuana use. In a bulletin that was distributed on Tuesday, DEA's JustThinkTwice.com site shared details about the campaign, which is being run by the anti-cannabis nonprofit organization Johnny's Ambassadors. Being an Instagram influence for anti-420 Day, the message says, Johnny's Ambassadors is hiring teens and young adults, high school and college students, to create ongoing videos about the harms of youth THC use for an anti-420 Day. The plan is to flood Instagram with short-form videos that would feature students talking about why young people should not use THC. Students would be eligible for a $25 Amazon gift card for a personal video, $35 for a group video, and $50 for a professionally produced educational video or skit with adult sponsor supervision. You have to cut the adult sponsor in for part of that $50 reward. What the right side says is your video should either be an educational youth THC prevention video on why young people shouldn't use THC products, vapes, dabs, weeds, edibles, gummies, or a personal story of how you have been impacted by THC use, yourself, a friend, a family member, or a loved one. It also provides examples of the website also provides examples of potential prompts, including explainers on why THC impacts athletic performance on a team and busting commonly held but incorrect myths about THC. Tell a personal story about how you've been negatively impacted by THC, or perform a skit or drama to educate other teens why using products with THC is bad for you. The description from Johnny's Ambassadors, which was founded the parents of a child who died by suicide after consuming high-potency marijuana concentrates, so it says. There are some restrictions on the content, including a ban on swearing in the video. So, Sam, you couldn't make a video for the anti-thing, although I don't know if you could pass for a high school or college student anymore. Maybe. And no content is allowed that depicts, imitates, or promotes the possession or consumption of any THC product. Anyway, so there it is. So the DA is paying young people to make videos on why they do it, because they're certainly not going to make it. And then what's going to be interesting, they're going to get the $35 and they're going to get the $50, and they're going to use the money to go out and buy some cannabis to use and celebrate with, I'll bet you. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see where, I don't know whether, I guess I didn't say where they're going to post those. Oh, on Instagram. I don't have Instagram, so I am not going to be able to see them. Okay, all right. So let's talk about cannabis and why it's important. I would like to talk about one thing, how I got involved in the cannabis movement. Um, and then I'd like to turn it over to Sam for a few minutes to talk about why he is so involved in the cannabis movement. Um, I've been smoking cannabis since I was 19, and I've always enjoyed it. I got drunk when I was 17. It was the worst experience of my life, and then I discovered cannabis, which was like the best experience in my life, and I've never stopped since. But I thought it was, I didn't think it was harmful, and it was lots of fun. But the idea that it had any beneficial uses never occurred to me. Never occurred to me until 1995, when a close friend of mine who had contracted AIDS. He was this roly-poly guy who had wasted around down to next to nothing because of the ravages of the AIDS disease. And we found that his use of cannabis, one of the problems when you get AIDS is that you have what's called AIDS wasting syndrome. You stop eating, not a good thing. Well, he found that using cannabis would stimulate his appetite, so he would eat, keep his weight on, stay alive. Also, back in 1995, people were taking a literal cocktail of different drugs trying to treat and kill the AIDS virus. And most of these drugs had very negative side effects. And who would want to take them? But the cannabis helped mitigate the side effects so he would stay somewhat compliant with his medication. And back in 1995, AIDS was considered a terminal disease. You got AIDS, you died. So it was kind of depressing, too. And the cannabis helped lift his spirits so he felt better about himself and life and all this kind of stuff. And so here was this medicine that made him feel good, helped him stay compliant with his medication, helped him eat, keep his weight on, stay alive, and I or some of his other friends had to go out in the street and deal with criminals to get him this medicine that kept him alive and made him feel better. And I began to realize this is stupid beyond belief. And I got involved with Paul Stanford and some of the other people in Portland, and we were working on a medical marijuana initiative in Oregon, similar to what California passed in 1996. And in 1998, Oregon did pass a medical marijuana initiative. And that's how I got involved in the movement. I said, this is stupid, and I got involved working on it politically, trying to get it legalized, not just medically, but as we have succeeded in so many states, recreation as well, because it has some very, very useful things for people who aren't sick. One of the major things is it's a substitute for alcohol. You don't have to drink to party and have a good time. But it has some really wonderful uses for a person's health. And Sam, you were telling me a bit about why cannabis was so beneficial to you.
Yeah. I started working to decriminalize it in 1971 because I don't believe in victimless crimes. My grandfather was a cop for 30 years and my father for 10 years. And they used to say, one of their favorite jokes was, do you know what an illegal is? It's a sick bird. Neither my grandfather nor my father believed that cannabis should be illegal. They remembered when it was grown as hemp, and they thought it was foolish. And my grandfather never enforced he never made an arrest unless it was something related. It was something else other than just cannabis. But I came up in a law enforcement family, and I didn't want to break the law. So I spent the entire years of 71 and 72 collecting signatures for Proposition 19, which in 1972 was the first time that that anyone in the world had a vote on the cannabis laws. And I waited until the election was done because I thought it would legalize it. And when it didn't, that's when I started using cannabis. I had been addicted to Thorazine by a psychiatrist. I was on, and Thorazine is a tranquilizer. Back in those days, they used just a couple of tranquilizers. They didn't use serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SEIUs. And Thorazine's addictive. My prescription was 575 milligram tablets a day. So that's 375 milligrams a day. And if someone took that much in a day, without building up a resistance, it would kill them. It's an overdose. That's how powerful it was. As an actor, I didn't feel like I had enough control over my emotions. And I figured out that it was this tranquilizer that was blunting my emotions. So I tried to quit cold turkey 2 different times. And about 3 or 4 hours after I missed a tablet, I went into convulsions and had to take the Thorazine just to keep from going into convulsions. Later on, I found out from medical professionals that I was really risking my life doing that. That the way to detox somebody off of Thorazine is to slowly decrease their dose. So I kept taking the Thorazine. Well, in November of 1972, I had a new roommate, and when he moved in, he bought a pound. It was not great quality. I mean, it's, Mexican weed. They used, they pack it in bricks as tight as it can be, and we used to have to groom it, take the seeds and stems out just to get the cannabis. But he said, smoke all you want. And I took him literally. I was a 3-pack-a-day smoker those days, so cigarettes, so was all unconscious anyway. And I built up to like 8 or 10 joints a day. And about 8 weeks into that, it dawned on me that I hadn't taken a Thorazine tablet in 6 weeks. I just forgot to.
Short-term memory
And
loss.
I threw them down the toilet and never took them again. Now, it didn't occur to me that that was a medical use until I told that Dennis Perone. When I met Dennis Perone in July of '95 in San Francisco, we were driving around the city. He was giving me a tour of everything he was doing. And he asked me, how did you get involved? And I gave him this story. And Dennis's reaction was right on spot. He said, that's a perfect example of medical use of cannabis. It didn't occur to me until then that that's what it was. That was my personal experience. Now, my general experience is this. I realized that everybody who enjoys cannabis, like you just talked, Lanny, are beating the drum for 420 and it's a great thing and all that. I look at the political perspective because I started in 1971 and worked until 2016. 45 years of my life wasn't the only thing I did, and I certainly wasn't the only person who worked on it, but I spent 45 years working to legalize cannabis. The greatest contribution this is going to make is that for generations to come, people are going to wonder about the validity of laws like the anti-cannabis laws that ruin people's lives, that imprisoned them for 100 years that cannabis was illegal. The greatest contribution to the legalization of cannabis is that future generations are going to hopefully think more for themselves and not accept government propaganda. And I really do believe that has happened and will happen. And eventually they will realize that the war on drugs is much more harmful than the very few people who actually use drugs, like cocaine or heroin or LSD. Because less than 10% of the population of the United States actually uses illegal drugs. And the war on drugs affects everybody all over the world. The violence of the war on drugs is what is the worst part of drugs. Not the user drugs, but the violence from the cartel, the violence of the government against cartels. That's the biggest problem. And the third thing I want to share is that I have founded a lot of organizations in my life. A lot of political, spiritual, New Age organizations. But the very first organization I founded was in 1973 because I was so overwhelmed by being free of Thorazine. I never had a trouble putting down cannabis. Cannabis has never been addictive like Thorazine was. But in 1973, I was walking across the campus of Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa, and I stopped because I could smell pot, cannabis. I could smell that great, sweet, skunky smell, and I couldn't figure out where it was. I was looking around, and this like a scene out of Alice in Wonderland. A voice comes from above, And I look up, and there's these two guys in the tree smoking a joint. He says, "What you looking for?" I said, "I'm looking for that smell." They said, "Come on." I climbed up. We sat in this tree, and we shared a joint together. I remember became some of my best friends. One passed away a few years ago, and one's still alive. Well, we did that. Every Tuesday and Thursday at noon, we had our little 420, which we had no idea what 420 was. It was Tuesday, Thursday at noon when all the classes were dismissed. We would climb up in the tree and smoke a joint. Well, we did that a few times, and this smarmy little dumbass old maintenance guy one day came by, and he didn't like the fact that we were smoking a joint, so he told us we couldn't sit in the tree. And he ticked me off. And I was part of student government at that time. So I got this bright idea to create a club. And I went over and I pulled out the forms. And I and about a half dozen friends of ours created a new student organization. We chose the anagram first, and then we created the name, Disciples of Positive Energy. Now you can figure out the anagram for yourself. We wrote up a charter to create a student club. And we said that wherever two or more are gathered together to smoke the minutes is a meeting of the Disciples of Positive Energy. And we said, we will have our meeting in the tree every Tuesday and Thursday at noon to smoke the minutes. And this will be our official club function. Well, half the student government was buying cannabis for me anyway. I was their major supplier because they had a connection for the best of it. They voted us in, no problem. We went back up in that tree, smoking the minutes, and this little smarmy son of a bitch come along, and he's down there yelling at us, "Get out of the tree." And I said, "This is an official club meeting. We are the Disciples of Positive Energy, and we are having an official meeting here to smoke the minutes." I said, "If you don't like it, you go to the Dean of Students' office and look up our papers." "I'll do that." And he's huffing and puffing all the way, went around the corner. We never saw him again. He never came back. And we sat in that tree and smoked the minutes every Tuesday and Thursday at noon for about 3 or 4 more years. That was the first organization I ever created. So those are the 3 stories I wanted to share. And in honor of 420 Day, I'm wearing my cap and my shirt, for those of you who can see it on video, for the film that I produced, Mary Jane, a musical documentary, which is it's 16 new songs, and it's readily available on all the pay-per-view formats. We produced it in 1995. We produced it in 2015 in Humboldt County. And I'm about to have subtitles put on it in Spanish and enter it in a Latin American Cannabis Film Festival this coming September. But I do believe, as much as you guys, as much as we all know the contributions that cannabis has made to society and medicine, CBD wasn't discovered in the human body before it was discovered in cannabis. And there are so many huge contributions, biologically, psychologically, and in every other way that cannabis is making to the world as the world rolls back its prohibitions. And that's the greatest thing about cannabis, is that people will be questioning the government for 100 years.
That's true. Very true. Gregory, how about you? You have any cannabis stories?
Yeah. First time that I had marijuana was in 1972, I think it was. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona. And I was having flashbacks when Sam was talking about how we used to get marijuana in a brick. And we would take the seeds and stems out, and it was mostly leaves, and that's what we used. And you'd buy an ounce, and we were selling ounces for like $10, and that's like 3 fingers in a sandwich bag. It was basically an ounce. Anyway, the very first time that I smoked marijuana, I was scared to death because I was a good Catholic boy at the time. and my roommates were all smoking marijuana. So they finally broke me down, and I smoked marijuana, and nothing happened. So I thought, okay, this is cool. I can join the others, and it's no big deal. So anyway, this goes on for probably, maybe a week and a half, and suddenly I got stoned, and it was immediate, and it was like really. Anyway, the one thing that was kind of a problem for me back then was that marijuana would make me antisocial. It would turn me inward, and I would, hard to communicate and all that kind of stuff. So I did that for about 5 years, and then I stopped. And then recently I started doing edibles for medicinal reasons, and I'm fine with it now. I seem to be able to, function normally and all that kind of stuff, and it's also fun. But I have sciatica, and that helps a lot with pain from sciatica. And I also have PTSD, and it helps a lot with that. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, my experience has been weird but pleasant.
Well, I always think that cannabis has been very helpful to me because, first of all, I have anxiety, and it's very good for anxiety. But another thing I found cannabis really good for is for, one of the most things that healthcare professionals always tell people, if you want to live a healthy life, you need to exercise. And I have found that when you smoke cannabis before you exercise, you're more likely to continue exercising, because every day that you go to exercise, you're going to smoke a little cannabis, which then you go exercise. You look forward to it. Victor and I exercise at least 4 or 5 times a week, and we always smoke some cannabis. It makes it very, very enjoyable and very, very fun. So it's not only something that helps you with with illnesses or ailments. It also helps you lead a healthier life, and of course a much more fun life. And for people who use cannabis in place of alcohol, it really is much more beneficial. Alcohol has absolutely no benefits whatsoever. This stuff about a glass of wine a day is nonsense. But a joint a day, that's not nonsense. That's very, very beneficial. Cannabinoids are something good for your, we produce. Yes, sir.
You know that Arnold Schwarzenegger did that when he was pumping iron?
Oh, yeah, he's in his movie, Pumping Iron. I talk about that.
He used at least a joint a day for cannabis to ease the muscle pain.
In 1992, Schwarzenegger told the Los Angeles Times that he would smoke marijuana before he went to the gym. He would smoke before he went to the gym.
That's right.
That doesn't make sense. You think he was smoking after he goes to the gym? He's been working out. He's got some pain in his arms. Blah blah blah. But he smoked it before he went to the gym. And why did he smoke before he went to the gym? Because Schwarzenegger was determined to develop the perfect physique, this most incredible physique. So he would go to the gym 2, 3, 4 hours every single day, pumping. Arms up, pumping, arms up, over and over and over. Boring. But he would smoke some cannabis before he went to the gym, and it would be more enjoyable to sit there and pump iron for 3 or 4 hours because you're stoned. And that's why he did it. And this is why I've written before that if you want to you should exercise. You really, really should, people. And one of the best forms of exercise is just walking. Get out every day and take a walk for a half hour. But before you take that walk, light up and smoke some pot. Then you'll take the walk. You'll enjoy the walk more. It'll be more fun, more colorful. And the next day, when it comes time to take that walk again, you look forward to it. Why? Because you're going to get stoned before you take the walk. So, and you learned that from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Linda, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
You have any cannabis stories for us?
Well, I'm the only one that has not thoroughly enjoyed it. When I first started smoking, I would listen to music. Profound. Loved that. And meals were always more fun. Clearly, sex was more fun. But for me to function like in a normal setting, when my friends would light up a joint and then we'd go walking somewhere or marketing or shopping or going to a movie or something, I became really paranoid and uncomfortable and all of that. And recently, I tried to use cannabis for pain, but what happened was I felt the pain more precisely. I mean, my focus was on the pain rather than it relieving the pain. So I'm not sure I'm a good candidate for this. I wish I was, because I did like the fact that for me it would slow down my thinking to the point where I could focus really well. And focusing for me is not easy. I'm all over the place most of the time.
Cannabis is not for everyone, just like nothing is the same for everybody. But you did have some benefit from it, and then sometimes the benefit wasn't as good as it could have been. So that's perfectly understandable. But the point is that it didn't hurt you.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it didn't hurt you.
It was a good experience when it happened.
And speaking about, I've had this little article that I wrote a little while ago that I'd like to read to you. It's about 420. Has become such ubiquitous term for marijuana use that there's this special day, international in scope, just to celebrate, April 20th. Urban lore informs us of the origin of 420. We talked about it, how high school students started the thing going on 420 way back when. Unfortunately, whatever the origins of the term, 420 doesn't just celebrate the use of cannabis, it specifically celebrates the recreational use of cannabis. 420 Day is really about the recreational use. Those high school students at San Rafael High School were not smoking it for medical reasons. They were smoking it for fun, for recreational use. And that's what 420 Day celebrates, really, is the recreational use of cannabis. Unfortunately, for those of us who have the intelligence, foresight, and chutzpah to use marijuana recreationally, the term has become so inflammatory that even medical marijuana patients who should know better denounce it in the most stringent of terms. Those who use it are not suffering from any of the myriad ailments for which cannabis provides a safe and effective release. This is not so much now, but it used to be that medical marijuana patients were really down on people who use marijuana recreationally. Oh, how dare you use it for fun when it's so important medically. As for the opponents of medical marijuana, mainly law enforcement and those on the lunatic fringe of the substance abuse treatment, they continue to issue dire warnings of the end of civilization as a result of the recreational use of marijuana. They justify their apoplectic visions by intoning that most medicinal use is actually recreational use masquerading as medical. And that's true, really. When we legalized cannabis medically with Proposition 215 in 1996 in California, what actually happened was the recreational use of marijuana became legal as long as you had a doctor's recommendation. And that's why most people were getting doctor's recommendations. And since cannabis was made legal, so you don't need a doctor, the number of doctors providing medical marijuana recommendations has plummeted. You can't even find any. There used to be doctor's offices everywhere that you can go to and plunk down $65, something like that, and you can get a medical recommendation. When was the last time you saw a doctor's office somewhere offering medical marijuana recommendations? You don't see it anymore.
While you're bringing this up, Lanny, I had an experience at Portland Cable Access when I worked there. And this might have been a program that either you or one of the two Pauls, Loney or Stanford, had brought a doctor into the studio, and on television they were encouraging people to come down to meet with the doctor so that the doctor could write them a prescription for marijuana. Was that you?
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. But
Okay.
it sounds like Paul Stanford would do, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, so no matter what side of the issue you were on, it's very illuminating that all sides have agreed to use the term recreational when describing the non-medicinal use of cannabis. Webster's
No. I've listened to you use that recreational word. We have not used that. We use personal use.
That's what's getting that, I know, but when people are just talking about it, they always say recreational versus medical use of cannabis, and because personal use could be medical as well as recreational. It's personal use. I want to
present a contrary argument from Dennis Perot. All use of cannabis is medical use. Now, think about it. What does it do for you? You say recreational use. What does it do for you? It relaxes you. It renews you. It refreshes you. It inspires you. Those are psychological attrtributes.
I'm not.
From the use of cannabis.
That's absolutely true, but that's sort of like saying all use of the only reason you drink water is because you need that water in your system.
No,
whereas sometimes
No,
drinking water is just if it really tastes good to drink more water.
Do you think that a psychologist is not a medical professional? A psychologist, a therapist?
Yeah,
That's what it does. It's a form of psychological therapy.
okay.
Mental health is health.
All right, fair enough. Let me go on with this, okay? Because it gets a little more. Let's say maybe recreation is the only term, but is a very commonly used term for using marijuana as opposed to medical. If you're not using it medically, you're using it for recreational purposes. So now Webster's Unabridged Dictionary defines recreational, quote, as providing refreshment in body or mind as after work by some form of play, amusement, or relaxation, unquote. What an excellent and absolutely appropriate word to use to describe the non-medical use of marijuana. The term recreational is not used to describe the use of cocaine, heroin, or ecstasy, and even though morphine, methamphetamines, or Ritalin have accepted medical uses, we don't describe the non-medical use of those drugs as recreational either. Cannabis is just about the only ingestible substance out there in which the term recreational is routinely used to describe its non-medical use. Now, just what are these recreational uses that anti-harm reduction warriors proclaim are so detrimental to the individual as well as society and the fabric of civilization? After a hard day's work, whether ingesting by yourself or joining with friends and passing a joint around, the relaxation and stress relief cannabis provides is one of the most beneficial aspects. Relaxation and stress relief are one of the major reasons people are encouraged to engage in recreation. And that is exactly what happens when cannabis is consumed recreationally. Another major benefit of recreation is that it facilitates socialization. Cannabis is an excellent social facilitator, and it does it without any of the harmful and insidious effects of another major facilitator of socialization, alcohol. No one ever refers to the recreational use of alcohol, and with good reason. Alcohol may facilitate socialization, but could also facilitate confrontation, anger, and violence. A good group recreational activity facilitates socialization among its participants and does not cause people to become confrontational, angry, or violent. That's another reason the term recreational is apropos when applied to cannabis. Of course, some group recreational sports activities can cause confrontation, anger, and violence, but more often than not, that happens when they have been consuming alcohol. By encouraging participants to take a 4:20 break before the game begins, cannabis's unique ability to reduce anger formation can help facilitate safe and enjoyable sporting events, even without alcohol have a habit of becoming violent. The benefits of exercise are well known. We went over that as well. So, and I went over the order section. The skeleton in the medical marijuana causes, of course, is that many patients who use marijuana to treat their ailments also use it recreationally. They use it to treat ailments, but yes, they also use cannabis to kick back and relax and socialize with their friends. You may call that medical, but it's also recreational. Whereas when they're taking cannabis because they're treating pain, that's not a recreational use of cannabis. That is a true medical use of cannabis. So 420 Day celebrates the recreational use of marijuana, which is part of an intelligent overall strategy for maintaining good health. That is the bottom line of recreational use of cannabis. And for some reason, that scares a lot of people. Ultimately, 420 Day celebrates freedom and the right of the individual to determine what is in the best interest of their health. And if that is the recreational use of marijuana, so be it.
Lanny, what scares people is there's a broad number of people who believe that you should not use your central nervous system as an amusement park, and that's recreational use. And that comes from the paranoia about LSD. But that's what it is. It's just the concept of that.
Your central nervous system is also involved in sex, and I guess that the idea that there we get to Puritan. Oh, sex should not be pleasurable; should only be done for procreation.
Yeah. But that's why we politically in 2013 we had a general agreement that we stopped using recreation. We started using personal. Everyone agreed to use the word personal use while we campaigned to legalize it in 2016.
I don't remember hearing that, but you're right.
You weren't there.
The word I was in 2016.
It was at a
No,
major
in
convention
California.
in
You're
Las
right.
Vegas.
You're right. I was in Oregon. You were absolutely right. In 2016,
It was a
I in
major
Oregon.
convention in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Several thousand people. All the DPA were there. All the major dispensaries were there, and it was a commercial convention. It ran 3 days. I took my whole staff from Humboldt County. I took one of my attorneys and 8 of my employees to the event, and it was there that we had an open discussion, and all the key people were there, and we made a public agreement to use the word personal use throughout the political campaign, specifically because of that.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens this 420. I don't know of any 420 celebrations going on where I am in the Coachella Valley. I imagine they're going to have them up in San Francisco. They always have something going on in Golden Gate Park all the time, every year. And I imagine there's some other 420 celebrations. One of the things that does get celebrated is dispensaries. I'll have big special 20-day specials and this kind of stuff. So it's a big day to go to a legal dispensary in 420. I wonder if the illegal dispensaries also put their cannabis on sale on 420 day as well. But that's, of course, that's one of the bad things that's happened with, which, we just recently, the Brownie Mary Democrats, we are working on trying to the legal dispensaries are having all kinds of problems that they cannot compete with the illegal dispensaries because they don't pay taxes and they don't have the regulations they have to go with, and so the price difference between legal cannabis and illegal is so extreme that the legal dispensaries are having consequences. We're trying to rewrite Proposition 64 that will level the playing field between illegal dispensaries and legal dispensaries. And we're trying to do that more by getting that cannabis treated the same way as alcohol is treated. One of the things that's interesting is that, in California anyway, local governments cannot ban the sale of alcohol. They can regulate it. In other words, they can say it can't be within 1,000 feet of a school, or they're going to be in certain zones or something like that. But they just can't out and out ban alcohol. And also, they can't put a use tax on it. Local governments cannot tax alcohol. They cannot put a tax on a bottle of beer. They cannot put a tax on a glass of wine or a bottle of wine or a bottle of Jack Daniels. They can't do that. But they can do that with cannabis. They can ban cannabis from anywhere being sold in their communities. They can, if they do allow it, they can tax the hell out of it. And we think then that's the problem. If cannabis was treated more like alcohol, where the communities couldn't ban it and they couldn't put a use tax on it and make it so expensive that people would stop buying at legal places and buy it from illegal places. So we're seeing if we can do that. So we're working on that. And if anybody wants to know more about what Brownie Mary Democrats are doing, go to our website, browniemarydemocrats.org. You'll find some interesting things there, and you could actually become a member and join there if you'd like to join the Brownie Mary Democrats. We're going to be at the California State Convention in the end of May, and it's being held in Anaheim, and we're actually holding a meeting at the California State Convention. And we're inviting all the 3,000 people coming down to the convention to come into our meeting and join us and help to make cannabis cheap. That's what we want to do. We're tired of expensive cannabis. It's got to be cheap. And that's very important because of all the reasons we've talked about here. For the health reasons, people using cannabis for pain use a lot of cannabis. They'll use a couple ounces a month. And if you're going to pay $400 an ounce, you're paying close to $1,000 a month for your medicine, and that's absurd. You shouldn't have to pay that. It should be like any other.
$400 a month?
$400 an ounce for marijuana.
Wow. It's cheap here.
What are you paying for it in Oregon?
Well, I don't. I buy edibles, and I get 20 edibles, 5 milligrams each for $13, $14.
That is big. Yeah, I think I don't know why Oregon has much cheaper cannabis. I should get Paul Stanford to come on the show and explain why cannabis is so cheaper in Oregon that is in California. And
I think the law was written correctly. The one in California is like really convoluted.
Oh, Proposition 64 was not written to make cannabis nirvana. Proposition
It's
64
because Oregon
was written to
learned
pass.
from our mistakes.
Yeah,
I was at the first convention in Oregon after it was legalized, a huge conference in Eugene back in 2013. And they learned from our mistakes and from Colorado's mistakes and from Washington's mistakes. And they
did
have,
something about it. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we're running out of time. We only have a couple minutes left. So is there a 30-second statement? Linda, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Do you want to encourage people to go out and get active?
Yes, what I'm going to do, Lanny, is send you a list of all the activities for the next week.
Okay.
Would that help?
I guess. I don't know.
I don't
I'll have
know
to find some time to do all these activities.
How to get it to everybody else.
Yeah. Well, hey, folks, thank you for joining us tonight on Lanny Sense. I thank Sam, thank Gregory, thank Linda. Hey, 420 Day is coming up. Get together with some friends, pass around a joint, to socialize. Be glad that we...
Just a second. I wanted to get the name of that movie, Sam, that you said you did. What was the name of that movie?
Mary
Jane, a musical documentary.
It's on YouTube, isn't it?
I don't think so. No, not the.
Oh.
It's not on YouTube. It's still
Okay.
on pay-per-view.
Well, if you can
And
see
sure
it,
to
it's
tune into the view from out here on YouTube.
there you go. Okay, well, that's it for tonight. Hey, thank you all, like I said, for joining us.
Thank you.
Be sure to go out and tell all your friends about Lanny Sense. Tell them to go out and smoke a joint, kick back, relax, and join us every Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Remember, you can hear the show afterwards at podcast on KCAA. So this is Lanny Swerdlow saying thank you for joining us on KCAA, the radio station that leaves no listener behind, and Lanny Sense that leaves no gender behind. Good night.